General for Peace Operations at the United Nations. Here we are at UN headquarters in New York, and we're going to have a discussion about what's happening along the so-called blue line, where a UN peacekeeping force seemingly finds itself caught between two warring sides in southern Lebanon. US Chief, welcome. First of all, I'd like to ask you about the situation on the ground, your latest information. There are some reports of progress on the diplomatic front in terms of a potential cessation of hostilities, yet at the same time, fighting seems to be maybe even escalating. What can you tell us?
Well, first of all, what I can tell you is that it's high time for a ceasefire in Lebanon. That's quite clear. And yes, there are diplomatic efforts to that effect. I'm not sure that we're there yet, looking at the recent statements from different parties, but those efforts are very important. We support them.
And in recent days and weeks, we've seen the peacekeepers known as UNIFIL. They've actually been caught in the crossfire. They have come under attack from the Israeli side, but there have also been missiles coming in from the north, we assume from Hezbollah positions. Are they going to stay despite these attacks? Some ask, is it worth the risk? What's your view?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, the peacekeepers, UNIFIL peacekeepers, are staying. They're holding the line, and they're determined to continue doing what they're mandated to do. What's very important is that the peacekeepers, UNIFIL, has the overwhelming support of member states. Total support from troop contributing country, total support from the rest of the international community, and that is critically important. We've seen that over and over again. And it is absolutely important that they should stay because they have a mandate. They have a mandate to support peace efforts, and once hopefully soon we have a ceasefire, then they will have to be there to support the implementation of a political solution.
And of course, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has asked that UNIFIL move, I believe, 5 kilometers north from their current positions. What would that objective be, and why would you say no to that?
Yes, we were told by the Israeli authorities that this request for UNIFIL peacekeepers to move 5 kilometers far from the blue line was for the purpose of protecting the safety and security of peacekeepers. But we made a very considered decision that it was critical to stay. First of all, because there is a mandate, and we are duty bound to the mandate. The peacekeepers need to stay. Second, because we thought that if those positions along the blue line are abandoned, then they would likely be occupied by one party or the other. That would be very bad for many reasons, including the perception of impartiality and neutrality of the United Nations. So really, this was a very considered decision. At the same time, we continue to follow the situation every single day, and of course, the safety and the security of our peacekeepers is the utmost priority.
You mentioned that the peacekeepers come from many nations around the world. Tell us a little about UNIFIL in general terms. How many countries contribute? Where are they from? What is their mandate? What are their constraints?
UNIFIL is a reflection of what the UN is. We have more than 40 troop contributing countries. It's very diverse. We have troop contributing countries from all continents, and they're all very committed to, the peacekeepers are all very committed to their mandate, to their duty, and I've seen that time and again, and we can see that, perhaps more clearly than ever, in terms of what they're doing. Of course, it's not, these are not very easy conditions for our peacekeepers right now, but they're very resilient. We also did what we could to strengthen, to reinforce the physical protection of our position, strengthen the sustainability by making sure that there would be enough days of supply, and that was done before the ground operation. But what is really unique and absolutely critical is the motivation, the resilience, the strength of our peacekeepers, the men and women, under the leadership of the Force Commander, General Lazaro.
And what exactly are they doing each day? I mean, this is a monitoring capacity. This is reporting back to the UN Security Council. They're in watchtowers. Give us a flavor of what it's like on the ground.
Right. Well, obviously, right now they are limited in terms of what they can do, but that doesn't mean that they're just staying in their bunkers or staying in their camps. Whenever possible, they continue to do a number of things. The patrols, which are important to observe and report what is going on the ground, resupplying our position, which obviously is critical, but also very much protecting and helping the population. There are still civilians who remain in the area south of the Litani River, and our colleagues, the men and women from UNIFIL, have done a lot to support, for example, medical evacuation, helping those civilians who need to move from one place to the other. And that is being done in very close coordination with the Lebanese armed forces, but also through deconfliction with the Israeli Defense Forces. Now, that is, I'm talking about what the peacekeepers can do now, but their role is really to support the implementation of a political solution. And the elements of that political solution are in Resolution 2719 of the Security Council.
Mm. And you talk about aid and supply lines and how the UN is supporting people on the ground. Has that been affected? I imagine so by the conflict. Tell us in what way that has been compromised. What isn't happening now?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, in various ways. First of all, it's obviously difficult for the peacekeepers to operate in a context of intense fighting. But then in addition to that, and unfortunately, you've seen quite significant destructions, both, buildings, villages that are being partially or even totally destroyed, and also roads, which obviously is a significant problem in terms of access, in terms of the ability to move in the area of operation. Mm. But I've seen many cases where the peacekeepers have been doing, going really the extra mile to clear the roads. I mean, to create conditions for them to continue to do what they have to do in terms of, again, supporting the local population, resupplying, patrolling.
Right. And what about the health of some of the peacekeepers who have actually been caught up in the violence? There were, in recent days and weeks, attacks where peacekeepers unfortunately were injured. What can you tell us about those attacks and about how they're faring?
Well, as far as the attacks are concerned, the damages to peacekeeping position and injuries to the peacekeepers, I think what's critically important to repeat is that attacks against peacekeepers are unacceptable. They are a violation of international law. And we've been repeatedly reminding the parties of their obligation to protect the peacekeepers, the safety and security of the peacekeeper. It's not an option, it's an obligation. Now, we've had 8 peacekeepers injured since the beginning of the ground operation. Thankfully, all of them are doing well, but that sort of tells you about the kind of dangers to which the peacekeepers are exposed, and therefore, more than ever, we need to repeat to the parties that they need to really respect their international obligation of protecting the safety and security of our peacekeepers. And
from in the sort of diplomatic world, what does that actually mean when you say that this is in violation potentially of international law, of humanitarian law? What is the next step? Where is there an accountability process? Does the Security Council get involved? What talk us through that.
Well, I think there are different levels. First of all, we've had overwhelming expression of support from member states, from the troop contributing countries, from the Security Council, and that's critically important. But in addition to that, UNIFIL investigates each of these incidents, and right now, I mean, this is what UNIFIL can do. It is collecting elements and evidence, and then we'll see how that can be taken forward.
And what about disinformation? We've seen throughout in recent, over the last year, in fact, in the Middle East, in Gaza, but now in Lebanon, there is so much disinformation. In fact, in politics around the world, it's a phenomenon that we're all very aware of. How does that affect the UN, and how does it specifically affect peacekeepers on the ground? What sort of risk does it pose for them?
Well, misinformation and disinformation are weaponized. I mean, the magnitude of that phenomenon, the danger that it poses to pretty much everyone, particularly the peacekeeper, is really taken a different sort of magnitude right now, and that has been also visible in the case of the Middle East and UNIFIL for quite some time now. But more recently, I think we've seen disinformation about the role of UNIFIL, and I think some of it, some of this disinformation tends to sort of suggest that the UNIFIL's role was to implement the political solution, was to implement, even enforced Resolution 1701 of the Security Council. Obviously, that is not the case. There's a lot that UNIFIL can do and has done and will do if there is a ceasefire in terms of supporting the parties. But it's for them, it's for the parties. There has to be a political will from the parties to implement a political solution, to implement the element of Resolution 1701. The role of the UN, the role of UNIFIL is a supporting one. It's important. There is a lot of substance in that supporting role, but I think that this has to be clarified. Unfortunately, we've seen a number of recent sort of messages that is not very accurate and sometimes probably quite disingenuous about really what UNIFIL has done, has not done, could do or could not do.
So UNIFIL essentially is monitoring, it's reporting back, it's the eyes and ears of the international community, perhaps in terms of what's happening on the ground, but it can't really, doesn't have a mandate to get involved. It can defend itself, but it essentially is a reporting mechanism. Is that right?
Exactly. I mean, to be more concrete, if the element of the political solution are there, Resolution 1701, it's very much about restoring full sovereignty of the Lebanese authorities with the Lebanese armed forces and the Lebanese security forces and in the whole of Lebanese territory. Now, the prerequisite is that there has to be a political will genuine from both parties to implement that resolution. And there, like in any other agreement, even if there is full political will from both parties or from all the parties involved, then they need a third party to observe, to advise, to deconflict, to clear any misunderstanding, to avoid any small incident, spiraling into something more serious. And this is what UNIFIL has done time and again in the past. I've have in memory countless incidents that could have degenerated, were prevented from escalating with the help of UNIFIL. The reporting role is very important, observing and reporting, and there I think that what we would need, again, it's connected to the political will of the parties, is full freedom of movement to be able to observe anywhere, and of course respect from both parties of their obligation in terms of allowing really UNIFIL to do its work in terms of supporting the implementation of that resolution.
And could you just talk us a little through how you monitor? I mean, what is it through technology? Is it in towers? What is it through patrols? What is that what does that daily life look like for UNIFIL?
Exactly. Well, it's about patrolling. We used to fly helicopters as well, and to sort of complement these sort of ground observation role. I believe that we could use more technology, but then again, technology, any way, any shape or form, needs to meet the support, therefore, of the parties. In other words, if we want to use drones, if we want to use cameras, then it implies that there would be an acceptance from the parties on the ground, and we know that because in the past, we tried to install a few cameras. That was very sort of low-tech type of devices, and we couldn't do that, and there was actually a wave of disinformation that followed these attempts of installing those cameras. So. We can do more, we can use more technology, we can use different capacities, but in the end, it all boils down to the compliance by the parties, and therefore the space that would be given to UNIFIL to do its work.
So realistically, is any prospect of an upgrade in technology to be able to do this something you can visit in times of peace after this conflict hopefully ends? I assume right now the chances are zero.
Well, I think that what we need to do, and actually what we're working on, is actually look at what kind of adaptation can be brought to the overall security mechanism for the Blue Line in southern Lebanon, and more specifically the role, the capacities of UNIFIL. This is what we're looking at. Different capacities, including technology, may be one of the many options. But I think there's much more that we need to look at in terms of further adapting the role of UNIFIL. But then again, it will depend on what the situation post-cessation of hostilities would look like. And then again, sorry for repeating myself, but genuine political will from all parties to implement Resolution 1701.
Understood. USG Lacroix, thank you so much for your time and your valuable insights.
Thank you.